I hope we're starting to get that Yom Kippur glaze look. So, and I can speak from personal experience that Dr. Windmuller will understand if you doze off, because he was my professor for many, many years at the Hebrew Union College, and I'm certain that I probably dozed off at some point in one of his courses, but he taught me well. He's saying I didn't. I was a perfect student. Dr. Stephen Windmuller frequents here often, from what I understand, and I know you delight in his intelligence, his wisdom, and I can speak personally to his Menschlichkeit and his caring for each and every one of his graduate schools. He was the head of the School of Jewish Communal Service, which is now called Jewish Nonprofit Management. I am a graduate of that school, a proud one. And I can tell you that it has helped me so much in my life and preparations. But what I want to say, I didn't ask your permission to say this, but on this day of memory of Yizkor, I want to just share something that you did that I'll always remember, which is when he lost his mother, he did a memorial service at school with all of the students and faculty. And it was one of the most touching remembrance services I've ever attended. And one of the things he did that was just extraordinarily intimate was he sprayed his mother's perfume. And I wasn't a mother at the time, but I had a mother, and she had a perfume. And I just was really moved by that, because we all have different models of, what funerals should look like, what memorials should look like, what they should sound like. And this brought in a whole nother sensory experience. And I'm an educator, so I care about those things too. And so I think we learn a lot about people by how they honor their parents. And so I certainly saw that in Dr. Windmuller. So I have said nothing about his many accolades, his 10 million articles that he's published about the American Jewish community, and that we're so lucky that he's been in Los Angeles really recording and teaching about the evolution of Judaism in Los Angeles. Specifically, he has taught a lot about politics and the way that American Jews are affected by that. And the joke amongst us students was that whenever we were in a situation or we would see something on the news, that Windmuller, that's what we called him, the Windmuller, would say, "Is it good for the Jews?" Whatever was happening, is it good for the Jews? That was like the Windmuller frame of things. So I know that he will talk to us about a very complicated and upsetting, it's really upsetting. I was in Israel in March with almost 20 sixth grade students, and we were having to decide how much we were going to tell them about the protests we were seeing and the experiences we were having. I can talk about that another time. But welcome to Dr. Windmuller, but I should say welcome back, and thank you for spending your precious holiday with us. We know you're a member of another congregation. Dr. Stephen Windmuller.
Thank you, Rabbi Schulden-Frey. Deborah's remembrance of that moment with my mother was actually Rabbi Richard Levy, who had the idea, because he knew my mother's favorite perfume. And so Richard created that ceremony of Havdalah with the perfume. But thank you for your really warm and gracious introduction. And wow, we are in the midst of a most extraordinary time and day. And this is, I think, my 5th occasion to be with you on Yom Kippur. And each of the previous 4 occasions, we spoke about threats, challenges, and conditions in the Middle East, which were challenging to Israel from the external. And today we're talking about something totally and dramatically different, possibly more challenging than any external enemy may have been, which is whether or not the state itself is a democratic, Jewish, independent polity will continue. This is the 8th decade of the state's existence. And we remind ourselves that the first Commonwealth and the second Commonwealth all came to an end in the 8th decade of their existence. So it's a bit of an awe moment when we think that there's the possibility that the Jewish people will self-destruct around the state of Israel's future, not because of a threat that was external. So this afternoon, in a very brief way, we'll want to walk through what is happening, why it is happening, take a look at a few outside factors that are going to be quite important over the next 3 to 6 months, and then close with some perspectives about what we are likely to endure. The reasonablest act, the notion that we are facing in this current government, the 37th government of the State of Israel, is an extraordinarily different government than the state has ever experienced. Israel has, as you know, a parliamentary system with multiple parties, as many as 22 political parties at any given time. Currently, there are 7 parties that control 64 seats out of the 120. But it is an extremely ideologically driven coalition, driven by religious Zionists, by Orthodox, and by very politically conservative perspectives, which has therefore created a kind of momentum on their part to really redesign the state in what they perceive as a different image of what the state of Israel ought to look like. Part of this is driven by demography, the rise of Israel's Mizrahi, Sephardic, Orthodox communities, whose political power in the past has been significant but not dominant, and where today there is a growing incentive for that movement to be in play, to be in power. So part of what we are seeing is a shift of players, people who were not part from 1948 through really 2018, were simply not part of the core of the Israeli political discourse, and that is fundamentally shifting. The second element here is that what we are seeing is a kind of geographical split. So we are seeing those living on the coast, still reflective along the Mediterranean of a kind of Western, European, liberal sentiment, and those living in Jerusalem, the settlements, and other parts of the internal construct of Israel as reflective of this new rise of political clout and influence. So it's an interesting geopolitical split as it is an interesting ideological one. Reasonableness is the basis in Anglo-Saxon law for countries such as Canada and Australia and even Great Britain to be able to rule in their court system that when something is seen as unreasonable by the legislature, that the courts have the right to a kind of judicial review of that. In the Israeli system, that has been a predominant and viable procedure. And we would remind ourselves that Israeli politics is framed around British law, Ottoman law, Jewish law. So we have to understand that this is an interesting composition of how the state of Israel has organized itself. And as you well know, Israel does not have a constitution. It has a series of so-called basic laws, of which the reference to the courts is that the courts will be, that is the judges, will be selected by a process involving the Israel Bar Association, members of the Judiciary Committee of the Knesset, and others appointed by the Prime Minister or the Justice Ministers to sit. That is part of what is now undergoing this radical re-evaluation. Who should select the judges? What is the power of the courts? What role the courts will play? And that will be part of what I think we are seeing as the platform of this current government. which has many other pieces to it, which are really, for many liberal Jews, quite concerning. The effect of changing some of the roles of the law to reflect Jewish religious law as against Western law or even Ottoman tradition. So all of that creates this rub, in a sense, this tension over how Israel will see the role of its Supreme Court. Now, there are 15 justices on the Supreme Court, including members of the Israeli Arab world, Arab community, 3 women, a number of justices who are from the Sephardic and Mizrahi communities, but the bulk of whom are really part of what I guess we would call the established Western European model. So part of this is an attack on who the justices are. Part of it is an attack on creating the question of how and what role the courts ought to have in determining Israeli policy and the balance between the role of the Knesset and the role of the courts. So this has become the issue, and since last winter, and you probably all are aware of this, every Saturday night, literally hundreds of thousands of Israelis have gathered on streets and on the highways in Tel Aviv and Jerusalem and elsewhere, making known both those who support this and those who deeply oppose this. So it has created a kind of civil conflict internal to Israel over whether or not the courts will be ultimately reshaped. Last few days in New York, the Prime Minister, Bibi Netanyahu, spoke at the United Nations, and you probably all have followed his visit. He also met on Friday afternoon, prior to Shabbat, with 25 leaders of the American Jewish community, including leaders of our movement, the Reform Movement, to have a full and open conversation about what is happening. And the conversation, according to news reports, was quite rational, appropriate. The term respectful was used by many of those present. The goal of that conversation was to convey yet again the concerns here in the United States, not only by the United States government administration, but by American Jewish leadership, and not all of America's Jewish leadership, but the great bulk of Jewish institutional leaders, concerns about really reshaping the flow of the role of the courts. How this will come out, we do not know. As you may know, the President of the State of Israel holds the position of an honorary position, and President Herzog has been particularly concerned that this could lead to literally civil strife. So he has tried to introduce over the course of these many months a series of proposals to slow down the action, to remove it from the role of the Knesset at this moment, to try to get a conversation underway between Israel's political leadership, center, right, and left, as a way of creating a discourse about how to move forward. That has not yet succeeded, and as we know, in July and August of this year, the final readings. A bill in the Israel Knesset must be read and voted on 3 times, and the third vote occurred, and 64 votes to none, because the opposition simply elected not to even show up, in a sense, to make their distress over these changes and the balance of power concerns that they had by simply avoiding participating in the third vote. This is, as I suggest, a part of a much larger platform of changes that those now in power have in mind, which is why many Israelis feel that this is a kind of tipping point. If this goes forward, and if it's not reversed, or at least not debated, it will lead to other changes that they fear and are concerned about: the rights of gays and lesbians, the role of religious law in the State of Israel, the question of policing, because the Ministry of Police is now under a very right-wing political leader whose ideas about suppressing minorities and Arabs and others has created great concern amongst Israelis of all different perspectives. So there are a whole slew of issues before the voters and before the country, having to do with how this government perceives itself and its role. Now here comes the interesting rub from the outside. For the past 3 months, the United States has been in negotiations rather quietly with Saudi Arabia and other Gulf states about really recreating a conversation between Jerusalem and Riyadh, the capital of Saudi Arabia, to open negotiations and potentially to open diplomatic relations. The Israelis very much want a Saudi relationship for all kinds of reasons, and we can talk about those later. But what it will bring to Israel economically, militarily, and certainly in a sense of creating a very different on-the-ground Middle East is that Saudi Arabia is the powerhouse of the region financially, certainly not by population, but it is the essential element in the region that calls much of the economic decisions, especially obviously around petroleum, but also around many other aspects. The Saudis believe that they are on the cutting edge of what they want to do, which is really change the face of the Middle East. Those are the terms that the Saudis are now using. To do that, they have an expectation of Israel, which is you've got to come to some resolution on the Palestinian question if you want our recognition. So here we have the dilemma. Washington wants this very badly for other reasons. It wants to keep China and, to some degree, Russia out of the constellation of the Middle East. And it wants to reassert an American presence by having a defense agreement between Saudi Arabia and Washington and having the Israelis aligned with the Saudis in terms of competing against Iran. So this is a very complex situation because if that is one of the goals of the current government and certainly of the Prime Minister, to achieve peace with Saudi Arabia, what does he have to give up? And will he give up some of his coalitional goals of changing the courts? Will he be able to convince his partners in the coalition to agree to some changes in terms of the Palestinian question? So those are the hot button issues that have to come to a head in the next few months. The American government wants this very badly. Reminding you, this is the third year of the Biden administration. In the third year of every American president, we have seen some kind of shift in U.S. policy having to do with the Middle East. Now, it may have dealt with Bill Clinton's efforts to create an agreement between Rabin and Arafat regarding Oslo. It may have regarded Donald Trump's efforts to develop the Abrahamic Accords. It may have been any number of other issues. They generally occur a year before an election, and they generally occur because presidents want to go into their election year having made some significant foreign policy moves and specifically appealing to traditional constituencies or win over constituencies that they feel are politically important. So keep that in mind as we move through the next number of months. So now we have the equation of an internal struggle in Israel over the future of democracy, this extraordinary potential opportunity to have peace with Saudi Arabia, the long-term challenge of what Iran will be and what role it will play, and how to counter that. And beyond all of that, we have really some of the most interesting developments elsewhere in the region. First of all, we are living with such huge changes in the Middle East. One has to do with Lebanon, and one has to do with Egypt. Lebanon, which was once the flourishing, idyllic society of the Middle East, has become really one of the Six Sisters, a poor country with tremendous political divisions. And the Israelis are particularly concerned because it sits on its north border with a very strong military under Iranian influence and control, Hamas and Hezbollah in Lebanon, Hamas to the south in Gaza. And this really is a potential dynamite moment. Lebanon in crisis is not good for Israel. It is certainly destabilizing to the Middle East. Egypt is the largest country, as we know, in the Arab world, but it is the poorest. And this is particularly challenging because the Chinese and the Russians are trying to figure out ways in which they can pry countries like Egypt, even Saudi Arabia, away from the American orbit to create a kind of counterbalance in the region. So this is challenging to the Israelis, who've had the longest standing peace of any country since really the 1970s with the Egyptians. So this becomes a really challenging moment when we look at the roles being increasingly played by the People's Republic of China in the region. And then we have to keep in mind that our concerns with regard to the fact that Morocco has just experienced a terrible earthquake and Libya underwent amazing and very sad flooding. Both countries were not prepared to deal with this, creating again an opportunity for Israel to be an important voice, certainly with Morocco, because Israel has diplomatic relations with Morocco. With Libya, as you may have noticed, there was an effort by the associate foreign minister of Libya to meet secretly with Israeli political and government officials. That unfortunately became public. It forced this extraordinary effort to really reshape the Libyan-Israel relationship, because Libya is, if you have not studied what's happening in Libya, Libya has two governments. It is torn apart. It was one of the wealthiest countries in the region because of its oil, and now it has sort of become a pawn between Moscow and Washington over who will control both the oil but also the political future. So it was quite important if we could have seen a breakthrough with the Libyan regime. The Libyan associate foreign minister had to flee the country. She is now in Turkey. So these are all challenging issues. As we come to a new year, 5784, we suddenly realize that the Jewish world is really dealing with some situations that we have not experienced before. The dynamics of how our democracy in Israel will survive, the opportunity to really reshape the future of the region, and the questions about how we rebuild the diaspora-Israel connection, which has been deeply shattered and hurt and damaged by much of what has happened over these 9 months of tension over this issue. Before I take your questions, just keep in mind that in 1990, China was only purchasing 6% of Middle East oil. It now purchases almost 30% of Middle East oil. India was purchasing relatively small numbers of barrels, is now a major player in the Middle East. What it tells us is that in the last 30 years, we are seeing a real shift in what will happen in that part of the world, in the context of understanding that new powers are entering the scene and will ultimately have an impact on the outcomes here, which is why Washington is particularly concerned about managing as much as one can manage the future sort of directions and discourse of the Middle East. So, Rabbi, what we can do is take some questions, and we can go beyond what I've described if you wish, but I'm happy to start with what we are.
The eager crowd here. Here we go.
Do you have any idea the percentage of Israelis who are for the change and those who are against the change?
So the polling is overwhelmingly against the change, overwhelming, from a series of polls that have been taken over the summer and even before. But more concerning than the polling are the number of Israelis who have told pollsters and others that they may not be able to live in a country that they view as losing its democratic quality or value. So the outmigration of Israelis becomes really another storyline here to this larger question.
Terrific summary. I have another question, but I want to follow up on her question. What about in the United States? What is the reaction here, given how we have our own issues along these lines?
Yeah. So,
Thank
again,
you.
I think the Jewish community, for the most part, is certainly opposing some of these changes. So I would say among Reform, Conservative, and secular Jews, the numbers are really quite significantly in opposition. Among Orthodox Jews, depending again on if you're Haredi versus modern, you see varying positions, clearly showing a kind of a greater degree of support there. So what we see, for example, from the Zionist Organization of America, Agudath Israel, the Union of Orthodox Congregations, those three groups and a few other smaller ones have aligned with the government on this, but everyone else, including literally hundreds of rabbis and Jewish leaders and institutional leaders, have really galvanized against this initiative.
Thank you. So my original question goes to Saudi Arabia, because it seems to me they're playing all sides. There's a situation where there's a thaw in their relationship with Iran. They're opening themselves up to China. And it doesn't seem like there's room for all the players in this puzzle. Someone's going to lose in this. And are the Saudis just seeing who they can get the best deal with? So just curious about all that.
I mean, I think that's a very good observation, and I believe that probably the Saudis are going to play the card that they think will deliver the most to them. So that presents the challenge that they're pitting China against us, and they're putting the Israelis, in a sense, in the middle of that. So there is absolutely credibility to your observation. But the Saudis, as I suggested at the very outset, are the kings of policy, certainly in the Gulf states, and have a lot to say for the rest of the Middle East. So we really are trying to win a game here of influence in a very destabilizing situation.
What is the current picture of Israel's energy resources?
Those are actually quite exciting. As you may know, Israel continues to discover offshore various petroleum, natural gas deposits. It's beginning to work with various, both corporate groups and other countries in developing those. So it becomes increasingly a player in the petroleum battles or petroleum possibilities. And so it's a win-win for Israel in the long term. This will take some years for all of this to be developed, but potentially this has real possibilities. The difficulty here is that there may be some threats, both physical and security threats, to some of these developments by the Iranians and others, but the goal here is certainly to try to make sure that Israel can move as much of this energy resources to markets both in Asia and Europe and Africa. Israelis are doing a lot of work in Africa, as you may know. Part of that is because they perceive Africa to be really the next center of really the international play will be there. China is playing extensively in Africa for natural resources, and both Israel and other Western countries are trying, in a sense, to be in that ball game as well. So the natural gas and petroleum have a kind of subtext to them, which is how Israel will reposition itself in places such as Africa.
Hi, Stephen. Just to jump back briefly, to what degree, based on the poll numbers versus the out-migration, do you foresee the ability of the democracy to save itself through elections, whenever that may come about? And to what degree do you see this, leaving aside the geopolitics, the current situation, as a threat to the state itself or to the identity of the state itself, if there's a distinction?
I knew you'd ask the toughest question. You always come prepared. I know. It's very tough, obviously. We're sort of looking at a crystal ball from the outside, and we're not direct players, although obviously as American Jews we have a great deal at stake here. My first sense is that the Prime Minister has been historically a very popular figure. He's the longest-serving Prime Minister in the history of the state. He's an extraordinarily astute politician. The question is, can he unload potentially part of his coalition, rebuild it with the center, meaning with the blue and white, with Gantz and Lapid and others, in a way that can deliver for what he needs or wants, although one of the things he wants is to be kept out of prison. Sorry, but that's a factor in all of this. As you may know, he's been charged with various corruption charges. But that is the big question, whether or not he's in a position where he can redirect his place, preserve his role, and yet recreate a coalition with this Knesset. I don't know. There are parties that will not work with him at this point, which creates even more of a challenge. It is the question of how realistic is all of this. I think it's very real. We could literally have a kind of civil conflict in Israel. If the courts rule next week or in 2 weeks that the reasonableness clause, as proposed or rewritten by the Knesset, is seen as either, for lack of a better term, unconstitutional or violates basic rights and roles, then it is conceivable that we will see for the first time on the ground some real serious threats to the civil stability of the country. And how serious that will be is no one can guess, which is why I think everyone is hoping that there will be a way to find a middle way forward, which is why the president of the state and other voices in the state who are seen as sort of trying to create wholeness and cohesiveness will do so. So democracy is in the balance here. There's no question. And for American Jews, this is something we could never have imagined, because our whole notion of the recreation of the third Commonwealth, of this Commonwealth, was so central to our identities as Jews and to the Jewish people. For us to see our brothers and sisters, in a sense, imploding, gives fodder and strength to Israel's real enemies, and unfortunately undermines the democracy, the character of the Jewish state, and its very future, which is why I think we are concerned. I don't know how else I can sort of shape this for you, but I think that's tragically and realistically a kind of scenario. We have a few more hands.
Okay.
2 here in the front. And beware, the hands in the front are usually the most challenging.
Well, philosophically, I'm definitely on the side of the liberals in this conflict. But what disturbs me the most about the protests, and I'm encouraged by the protests, is that the military is threatening to not do their job. And how does that?
Right. I think we just to correct that by 1 degree only. It is the reservists who have said they will not be willing to be called to this.
James? I'm wondering if we have another mic. Okay.
The reservists are the ones who are saying they will not do their service if this moves forward. And that is scary, because Israel does not have a particularly large standing army. It has a rather large reserve military. And as you know, that really includes so many of Israelis from across the spectrum of its citizenry. So that is of concern. I think here.
Yeah, thank you. This is also incredibly insightful. And my question actually builds on Lily's. You have the Haredi and the ultra-Orthodox who will not participate in the military. And if I try to play this through to the end game, and if we have a new government and a schism where it becomes a non-democratic, ultra-conservative, ultra-right-wing Israel, and the liberals and the scientists and the people doing all the stuff driving the economy leave, and all we have are, yeshiva boys who won't fight, then Israel disappears. And that is what frightens me. And the current ongoing issue of will the Haredi have to serve, and Netanyahu just panders to them. So that's my concern, that we end up with no scientists and no military, and then it's just a free-for-all.
Yeah, I mean, the brain drain is a serious threat to Israel for all the reasons you've cited and for all of the ones we can well imagine, because the success of this country was tied in part to its technology, its brain power, and its resourcefulness and everything that it has done in terms of medical research, engineering, even military work as well. So it's a rather disturbing moment if you want to put it in the context of what happens if you empty out the country and you really rechange the demographics totally to a different kind of Jewish state. Yeah.
Which will fail, and then we'll just have another diaspora.
Absolutely. So I don't want to end on such a negative
I know,
note.
I think do you have inspiring words for us? Then I left my machzor in the other room, so.
First of all, I am grateful, as every year, to have you with your penetrating and thoughtful questions. And this year, because it was a different kind of scenario, making it even more impressive. And secondly, to respectfully acknowledge your Rabbi Hanish, and our good wishes for his full health and recovery. And to again thank Rabbi Schuldenfrei for being so gracious and welcoming me. And I would end with the premise that the Jewish people have survived, and even today, this day of reflection and self-awareness would remind us that this is an extraordinary story of a people that has renewed itself and always found a way forward. And I think that sense of hope, which is reflected in the Israeli national anthem, is reflected in much of our prayers about the sense of this dynamic notion of the Jewish people's future, is very much on our minds, but also needs to be understood that hopefully creatively and reflectively, we will see an extraordinary outcome to all of this, and hopefully a stronger democracy in the end. Wishing you each a peaceful, fulfilling, and healthy New Year.
Gamar Tov, Stephen, thank you so much. We really appreciate your time, and we're wishing you well. Thank you. We'll take a brief break now, and we will continue at about 4 o'clock with our afternoon service, our Yizkor service, our meditation service, and Neilah.
Why would I do that? I do it like passing him around. Right. Yes.
How we doing? Yes.
Sometimes what Rabbi John does and the cantor
Yes.
is during the Yizkor service, the meditation. They'll put two chairs here and you sit up and it's a little bit more intimate.
Oh, that's so
If that's
nice.
what you want.
It's beautiful.
Do you want us to put two chairs here now so it doesn't have to be moved during the middle of the... Well, we usually do a break so we could move it
Yeah,
there.
that's true. There's
okay?
a 5-minute break.
There's a
Maybe
5-minute
that's why
break.
there's a 5-minute.
Okay. And do you know if this is needed here?
Might know.
Okay.
No. Oh, no, this is left from Stephen.
Okay, so we don't need this.
I don't
Okay.
think so. Here, let's take the mic.
And do you want chairs?
Everyone was holding it. I know. Yes. Yeah. That's a perfect spot for them. Just so they don't feel.
No, I have a light right here, actually. Thank you for asking that, James.
My charger.
I almost bought one on Amazon, but then I don't. But have one. Always.
test, 1, 2.
I'll double check though, Lisa. You left it there? Because I sit over there and sing over there. Thanks.
I might just have it on my lap. No, they're gonna take it.
Check, check.
They have a good country.
My son is there. I hope he's gonna just- Okay, welcome back, everyone. Now it's been a day, or a day and a half, or 2 days, depending on how you count it. We're going to continue our service with an afternoon service, and then with a Yizkor service, a meditation service, and then closing of the gates, the Neilah, and a communal break the fast. Quick reminder, I'll share again, but there are donation cards in the pews, and if you've been moved by what you've been part of so far, we hope you'll consider. If you're here for this service for the first time, we hope that you feel part of the community as well. We're so delighted that you've joined us. Our service continues on page 325 with a song about a narrow bridge, a very narrow bridge, and the choir will lead us. We stand as one. At this hour, Israel stands as one in prayer. All Jews on earth unite through memory and hope. A people unafraid, unvanquished, says to God, "This people you have formed still lives to tell your praise." This people you have formed still lives to tell your praise, still lives to share this teaching with our youth. Our ancient journey has not yet reached its end. The faith implanted at our people's birth is realized from age to age, our sacred covenant. This people, few in number, ventured forth to carve a lonely path through wilderness with dreams of vines and fig trees. Justice in the gates, land at peace. And we still make our way across the desert. This people you have formed still lives to walk before you. Exiled once to Babylon, we learned the unity of God. A second time, dispersed by Rome, we learned that humankind is one. Hear, O Israel, Shema Yisrael. The call still sounds. Eternity is ever present in your midst, a heritage of sacred purpose in your heart. Your past tells a story for all peoples. Your future holds a promise still unfolding. At this hour, Israel stands as one in prayer. All Jews on earth unite through memory and hope. We look at one another, and we know who we are. We look to our Creator, and we know our strength. In pursuit of truth, this people lives to serve the Most High for the sake of life. Behind us, pain and glory. Before us, holy work. Timeless words command us. Toward eternity we gaze. We are introduced this afternoon to a character, Jonah, who is considered a prophet, but there could be some debate about that. For a prophet in Judaism is defined as one who is trying to convince the people to make tshuva, to change their ways, to do things differently. And every single prophet, name them all, Isaiah, Jebediah, Obadiah, Hezekiah, all the ayahs, they all fail. The people do not repent, and they do not fully participate in their tshuva, except for one, and that is Jonah. The people do repent, and perhaps this is why he is the selection for this holiday. But I mention it because I just think it's an interesting paradox that for you to have the name of prophet, you have to fail in your influencing capacities. And maybe that also is a reminder to us that we go by many names and professions, and we don't have to seek perfection to still be outstanding at what we do. After all, the prophet still stirs the feelings, the emotions, and the ideas within us. We are truly privileged that in a moment, we have returning to us a theater artist and performer for whom this is their 7th time with us presenting the book of Jonah. So we will bookend the reading of Jonah with the blessings before and after the Haftarah. And thank you, V, so much for being here with us tonight. We appreciate you. If you would like to read along in the blessings and the Haftarah, you will find them on page 342, and the story of Jonah will continue on 344.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bachar b'nvi'im tovim v'rafav ratza b'divrehem hanemarim be'emet. Baruch atah Adonai abocher b'Torah uveMoshe avdo uveYisrael amo uvinvi'ei ha'emet v'tzedek.
And the word of Adonai came to Jonah. Get up, go to the great city of Nineveh and proclaim against it, for their evil deeds have risen up before me. But instead, Jonah went down to Joppa and found there a ship heading for Tarshish. He paid its fare and went down into it in order to flee to Tarshish, away from the presence of Adonai. The ship set sail, and Adonai hurled a great wind upon the sea, a storm at sea so great that the ship was in danger of being shattered to pieces. The sailors were frightened. They cried out, each to their own god, and flung the ship's cargo into the sea to lighten their load. The sailors feared for their lives and did what they could to prepare for the oncoming storm. But Jonah had gone down into the hold, the lower deck of the vessel, and he lay down and he fell into a deep sleep. The captain approached Jonah and said, "What are you doing sound asleep? Get up." The sailors decided to cast lots, that they might know on whose account the storm had come. When they cast lots, the lot fell on Jonah. They asked him who he was. He replied, "I am a Hebrew. I revere Adonai, God of heaven, who made sea and dry land." The men felt fear, and they asked him, "What have you done?" Because the men knew he was fleeing from Adonai, for so he had told them when he boarded the ship. And they asked him, "What should we do to you to bring calm to the sea around us?" For the sea was growing more and more stormy. Jonah answered them, "Lift me up and hurl me into the sea, and the sea will calm down for you, for I know that this great storm came upon you because of me, and it would be better that I should die." The crew rowed hard to return to dry land, but despite their efforts, they could not do it, for the sea was raging more and more fiercely around them. They called out to Adonai, saying, "Please, Adonai, please do not let us perish because of the life of this man." And they lifted Jonah and they hurled him into the sea. The sea stopped raging. In thanks, the men revered Adonai, and they offered a sacrifice and made vows. Now, out of the waters there came a great fish, which swam swiftly, overtook Jonah, and swallowed him whole. Jonah did not die. He lived and was in the belly of that fish for 3 days and 3 nights. While there, Jonah prayed to Adonai, his God. I called to Adonai in my distress, and God answered me. I cried out from the belly of the netherworld, and you heard my voice. In the depths, you cast me into the heart of the sea, and the floods engulfed me. All your billowing, breaking waves swept over me, and I thought to myself, I was banished from before your eyes. Will I ever again gaze upon your holy temple? The waters closed in over me, the deep engulfed me. Rushes wrapped around my head. I descended to the low point of the mountains. The gates of the earth closed upon me forever. Yet you, Adonai, my God, raised up my life from the pit. When my life fainted away, I called Adonai to mind, and my prayer came to you, to your holy temple. They who cling to empty folly forsake their own welfare. But I, with a shout of thanksgiving, I will sacrifice to you. What I have vowed I will fulfill. Rescue comes from Adonai. Adonai commanded the fish, and it spat Jonah out onto dry land. As Jonah lay on dry land once more, breathing fresh air once more beneath the sun and sky once more, so the word of Adonai came to Jonah a second time. Get up, go to the great city of Nineveh, and call out to it the proclamation that I tell you. So Jonah got up, and at last he went to Nineveh, as Adonai had commanded. Jonah started out and made his way into the city of Nineveh. He called out to the people and simply said, "In 40 days, Nineveh shall be overturned." The people of Nineveh heard Jonah's words, and they trusted them. They trusted in God, and so they proclaimed a fast. They put on sackcloth, from the richest to the poorest. And word reached the king of Nineveh, and he himself got up from his throne, discarded his robe, put on sackcloth, and sat in ashes. The king cried out and declared, "By decree of the king and his nobles, no person or beast of flock or herd shall taste anything. They shall not graze, and they shall not drink water. They shall be covered with sackcloth and shall call loudly to God. Let all turn back from their evil ways and from the violence which is in their hands. God may turn and relent, turn back from the heat of rage, and if so, perhaps we shall not perish." God saw what they did, their commitment to turning back from their evil ways, and God relented from the punishment planned for them and did not carry it out. But to Jonah, this was a great evil, and it made him angry. "Please, Adonai," he said, "is this not what I said when I was still in my own country, before I went to all the time and trouble to come to Nineveh? to say the words which you commanded me. This is why I fled to Tarshish to begin with, for I knew that you are a gracious and compassionate God, endlessly patient and abounding in steadfast love, ready to forgive weakness and evil. And now, Adonai, please, just take my life from me, for it is better for me to die than to live. Adonai responded, is your anger so dear to you? Jonah stormed off and left the city. He found a secluded place to the east of the city and made himself a shelter there. Jonah decided to wait in the shade of his shelter until he might see what would become of the city of Nineveh. As Jonah waited, Adonai Elohim provided a gourd and made it rise up over Jonah to give him shade for his head as the sun beat down. And Jonah rejoiced. He was filled with great joy because of the gourd, and he went to sleep happy. But at dawn of the next day, God provided a worm that attacked the gourd, and it withered. And as the sun rose, God provided an oppressive wind from the east, and the sun beat down on Jonah's head, making him faint. Jonah begged for death, saying, "It is better for me to die than to live." But God asked Jonah, "Are you angry about the gourd?" And he said, "I am good and angry to the point of death." Then Adonai said, "You pitied the gourd and loved the gourd, which you neither worked for nor grew, which appeared overnight, then perished overnight. Should I then not have compassion for the great city of Nineveh, a place of more than 120,000 human beings who have repented? Where is your compassion? Why can you not love? Why can you not forgive?"
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, tzur kol haolamim, tzadik bechol hadorot, האל הנאמן, האומר ועושה, המדבר ומקיים, שכל דבריו אמת וצדק. על התורה ועל העבודה ועל הנביאים ועל יום השבת הזה שנתת לנו, אדוני אלוהינו, לקדושה ולמנוחה, לכבוד ולתפארת. על הכל אדוני אלוהינו, אנחנו מודים לך ומברכים אותך. יתברך שמך בפי כל חי תמיד לעולם ועד. ברוך אתה אדוני מקדש השבת.
Blessed are you, Adonai, sovereign, who forgives our failings and pardons the failings of your people, the house of Israel. You banish our guilt from year to year. You reign in majesty over all the earth. You sanctify this day, this Yom Tov, this Yom Kippur, the people Israel, and the Day of Atonement. We're going to turn now to our supplement. Do we have the supplement in the pews? The voice? Wait, I'm sorry. I'm mixed up. Okay. They're both so colorful and beautiful. Well, hold your Yizkor book for a moment. We're still in the confession part of the service where we're hearing about the people who have tried their teshuvah, the prophets that have encouraged us to do so. I want to read a poem called Confession by Jonathan DeGan. I write out each of my regrets. The words spin off the page as yarn, knit like a sweater on my back, weighed down from being rained upon by lives whose day could otherwise a little bit less burdened be through my consideration served from cups of my humanity. The secrets kept from those we love, the pennies gained in mild deceit, the insults dropped to hoist our pride, the honor cowered in retreat. Land ripped apart in arrogance, destruction in impatient haste, a mind closed to counsel fair. Tears, time, and life down into waste. Tears time and life down into waste. For some, our sins are paid in fire or spooled out on a movie screen, which we review and pay in shame, aware of where our fault has been. But here on earth we live and learn. Our conscience should be never gone, so that our burdens fall and flow into a stream that leads us on. We are in the afternoon service of Yom Kippur. Many of us have been fasting, and we're going to invite you in a moment to rise. And there are many, many moments in the service to come where we will rise. So I'm going to be asking you to take care of yourself and, of course, to offer reverence to God and the Torah and the Ark and this holy day. But if you need to sit down, please, please sit down. The Amidah, the standing prayer, is on page 356 and 360. If you are able, please rise.
Na 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 Adonai. Na 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 Svatai tiftach. Na 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 Ufi yagid. Ufi yagid tehilatecha. Na 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 Adonai. Na 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 Svatai tiftach. Na 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 Ufi yagid. Ufi yagid tehilatecha. Na 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 Adonai. Na 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 Svatai tiftach. Na 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 Ufi yagid. Ufi yagid tehilatecha. Na 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 Adonai. Na 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 Svatai tiftach. Na 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 Ufi yagid. Ufi yagid tehilatecha.
It's customary in the afternoon and evening for the Amidah to be a silent recitation. So you can continue, you can start your Amidah on page 360, and you can continue through until about page 410. Please notice that the customary liturgy is on the white pages, and the interpretations and explanations are found in the gray and blue pages. Any of these readings or offerings or learnings are acceptable and welcome. You can indicate to us that you have completed your meditation by taking a seat, and we will continue the service from there.
I לשוני מרע, ושפתיי מדבר מרע. ולקללי נפשי תדום, ונפשי כעפר לכל תהיה אלוהי. אלוהי, פתח ליבי. צור לשוני מרע, ושפתיי מדבר ממעט. ולקללי נפשי תדום, ונפשי כעפר לכל תהיה אלוהי. אלוהי, יהיו לרצון אמרפי, והגיון ליבי לפניך.
We continue our services on the themes of atonement, on offering our own apologies, and learning how to forgive others and to forgive ourselves. I want to share with you a reading from Rabbi Rami Shapiro, Forgiving Yourself. Feel bad. It won't kill you. Use these feelings as a catalyst to make amends, so long as doing so doesn't inflict more pain. Do something positive that will help offset the damage you have caused. After you have done all you can by way of making amends and have learned all you can from what you did, make a solemn vow not to repeat the act. Assuming you have done all of this, let it go. How? The next time the memory arises, don't give yourself over to the drama. Yes, I did that. I won't do that again. There's no point in dwelling on it, and doing so simply feeds my narcissism. Better to do something constructive with my time and energy. We prepare now for the communal confessional. Our communal confessionals all end with the Hebrew letters Nun Vav, making the noise Nu, Asham Nu, Bagad Nu, for every letter of the Aleph Bet. For we are all confessing together, and I guess I'd like to add that we are all forgiving together, that we are reaching up to God to grant us forgiveness, but that we need to forgive others amongst us as well. My name is Rabbi Deborah Schuldenfrei. For those of you I haven't met yet, I'm the interim senior rabbi here at Kol Tikva. With me on the bima is Dr. Joel Stein, our cantorial soloist. And I mentioned that I'm the interim senior rabbi because our senior rabbi is being treated bravely and for cancer, and he has cultivated these beautiful writings through his writing group over many years. And so I'd like to share reflection today with you. If you'd like to read along, it's on page 11, Ashamnu by Pam Marshall. Ashamnu, of these things we are guilty. We betray your creation. We pollute your sky with our greed for convenience, easy travel, cheap products, fast delivery. We drain your lakes and rivers as we covet our neighbor's green lawn, luxuriating in long showers while the poorest thirst. We eat meat from commercial farming, eroding the soil, polluting the earth, depleting resources, disguising our veracity behind claims we're gourmand. We refuse to welcome the stranger, wishing the homeless to another neighborhood, placing our property values before humanity. For all of these things, we ask forgiveness. Ashamnu. We find the confessional on page 416. If you are able, please rise.
דיברנו דופי, הבינו, והרשנו, זדנו, חמסנו, תופלנו שקר, לילה יעצנו רע, כיזבנו, לטנו, מרדנו, נייצנו, שררנו, אבינו, פשענו, שררנו, קישינו עורף, רשענו, שיחדנו, תיעבנו, טעינו,
Of these wrongs we are guilty. We betray, we steal, we scorn, we act perversely. We are cruel, we scheme, we are violent, We slander, we devise evil, we lie. We ridicule, we disobey. We abuse, we defy, we corrupt. We commit crime. We are hostile, we are stubborn, we are immoral. We kill. We spoil, we go astray, we lead others astray. On page 418, we continue with our vidui, the long confession. Let's read the English in unison for the next few pages, starting with "For these sins." For these sins, our God, we ask forgiveness. The ways we have wronged you deliberately and by mistake, and harm we have caused in your world through insincere promises. The ways we have wronged you by judging others unfairly, and harm we have caused in your world by making light of serious matters. The ways we have wronged you by giving in to our hostile impulses, and harm we have caused in your world through the ways we have wronged you through our innermost thoughts, and harm we have caused in your world through the words of our mouths. The ways we have wronged you through lies and deceit, and harm we have caused in your world by mistreating a friend or neighbor. The ways we have wronged you by hating without cause, and harm we have caused in your world through hypocrisy. For all these failures in judgment and will, God of forgiveness, forgive us, pardon us, grant us atonement. Page 420. The ways we have wronged you openly and secretly, and harm we have caused in your world through our thoughtlessness. The ways we have wronged you by profaning your name in public, and harm we have caused in your world through offensive speech. The ways we have wronged you through gossip and rumor, and harm we have caused in your world through disrespect to parents and teachers. The ways we have wronged you through narrow-mindedness, and harm we have caused in your world through dishonesty in business. The ways we have wronged you through sexual immorality, and harm we have caused in your world through consumption of food and drink. The ways we have wronged you by betraying trust, and harm we have caused in your world through impulsive acts of malice. For all these failures of judgment and will, God of forgiveness, forgive us, pardon us, lead us to atonement. Ve'al kulam Eloha selichot, salach lanu, michal lanu, kaper lanu. You may be seated. The acrostic poetry, a poem from A to Z, is a common practice for poets and also, in particular, Jewish poets of a particular time. And so I'm sharing with you an Asham New text in more modern language from A to Z so that we can consider the wholeness of this day and our atonement. We have assumed the worst in others and the best of ourselves, betrayed the trust others have placed in us, confused that which is essential with that which is not, destroyed ourselves with needless abuses, enjoyed the downfall of our adversaries with glee, felt superior to others by means of ability, wealth, or power, given less than our full selves to our community and our world, hastened to decry responsibility for our own actions, instigated animosity amongst others, junked our world with trash, showing no regard for the environment, kindled misplaced passions, lied to cover our vanities, missed opportunities to better ourselves, negated the validity of others in an effort to aggrandize ourselves, observed persons in need and ignored what we saw, perverted the blessings of our lives into dangerous obsessions and mere possessions, quietly slipped into lives defined by moral decay, refused others and ourselves our love, seduced ourselves with the lie, no one will get hurt, unleashed hurtful words, valued strangers more than our family and friends, wished ill upon others, xenophobia, yielded to temptation, zestfully pursued happiness to the exclusion of goodness. We're going to take a very brief break, just 2, 3, 4 minutes before our meditation service begins. We will be using for the meditation service the voice book, the 2 colorful booklets, the voice book and the Yizkor book. So please give us a moment to get set up.
I do not enjoy meditation service. Because they always want me to forgive someone I don't want to. So I ain't doing it. Yeah, I need to stay. My little Julia bag? Yeah.
I know, I feel like I'm gonna come flying down. No, it's okay.
I don't know where I learned to do that, but I can do it with loudest. It might be that, or like the speed of no.
over the different holidays, over Rosh Hashanah, over Yom Kippur, I've been in touch with Rabbi Hanish, and I want to share a poem, a prayer of his, so I know you'll listen closely. The title is, I Wrestled with God, and I Was Victorious. I wrestled with God, and I was victorious. The Almighty grabbed my hand, but I pulled away. The Almighty grasped for my ankle, but I avoided God's touch. The Almighty lunged, but I was too nimble. I wrestled with God, and I was victorious. I ignored God's whispers. I ignored God's shouts. I ignored God's messages. I wrestled with God, and I was victorious. I saw injustice and avoided involvement. I saw bigotry, and I did not let its sorrow touch my soul. I saw what was right, and I turned away. I wrestled with God, and I was victorious. Every year, my heart is hardened. Every year, my garment becomes more soiled. Every year, I promise to change, but the words are lost to inaction. I wrestled with God, and I was victorious. I was victorious. I defeated goodness, rationality, and my soul. I took my own path without regard for holiness. I wrestled with God, and I was victorious. But today is different. Today I am held. Today I am loved. Today I am forgiven. In this coming half hour, we offer this meditation service to you, to listen, to close your eyes, to go where you need to go. And if you wish to flip through the supplements, you can do that. We'll guide through a few things and then offer some time for silent meditation as well. There will also be music, which certainly stirs the soul. And our purpose is to return again, to complete the task of tshuva, to return to ourselves, to return to our home, to return to each other, to return to all that is good, and to return to God in these hours, these final hours of Yom Kippur. So let us return again.
Return again, return again, return to the land of your soul. Return again, return again, return to the land of your soul. Return to who you are, return to what you are, return to where you are born and reborn again. Return to who you are, return to what you are, return to where you are born and reborn again. Return again, return again, return to the land of your soul.
let's consider forgiveness. Place your feet flat on the floor and try to sit up tall and straight. I'll try to. Let our shoulders relax. That's the hardest thing for me. Consider closing your eyes. Let's start with a deep breath in, out, in, out, in, and out. And now to the rhythm of your own breath. Follow that breath. That breath, which is the gift that God gave us when we were created. And it's something that we do all of the time, even though we don't realize it. Except, of course, for when we are panicking and we are holding so tightly not to let go that we're holding our breath. Just allow your breath to move through you. Maybe, if we're quiet enough, we can feel our own heart beating, or you can place your hand on your wrist or on your chest and tune into the drum that beats within each of us, pumping the blood through, sustaining us and keeping us alive. We stand in a room facing a blank wall, and we turn to another blank wall. And we turn again and see a window. And through that window, light pours through. And it lands just before your feet, right on the ground in front of you. We stand in the shadows and we stare out the window. Someone approaches, someone who needs to ask you for forgiveness. Someone you know. So think about who that person is. And what do they look like? What are they wearing in this moment? What's the relationship that you shared that you need to offer forgiveness? Now the person comes to the window and you hear their voice through it, but it's muffled. But still, you hear this apology. Why are they asking for your forgiveness? What does it matter? You step out of the shadows and into the warm light. Let's respond. What are the words we're going to use? How do we forgive this person? And you do. You do forgive. The person thanks you, and then they leave. So here you are standing. How do you feel? Has your burden been lightened? Let's return to our breath and breathe in and breathe out. Breathe in and breathe out. And let's slowly bring awareness back to our bodies that are the temporary container for our soul. You can wiggle your toes, look at your hands. You can slowly open your eyes and know that forgiveness frees you and anger imprisons. Forgiveness allows for peace with others, with yourself, and to move forward with hope. Renew our days as days of old, so that we will return to you, Adonai, our God. Hashivenu Adonai elecha v'nashuva. Return to us, and we will return to you. We are so delighted to welcome so many to the service. So in the next few minutes, we're going to take a brief refrain and then begin the Yizkor service. But I want you to look around and be mindful. There's many more people that want to come into the sanctuary, which is an amazing thing. And there's some room between us and the people around us. So let's make some room. Please know that, as always, there is a front row in the synagogue. You may sit in the front row. If we were Taylor Swift, you would even pay a lot more for those seats. But everyone is welcome in the front row here. We'll just take a brief break and come right back.
I haven't, but I'm just going all I got. In the house, yeah. In the house, yeah. The lows don't come very well in the street. I've got a high pass for a lot. What's the valid concern? Pleasure to meet you, Howard. These are, I've been using some weird reasons. These are ATTs. Same.
No, not at all.
No, that's an interesting. I think that's someone else's book. Because it has a little white. But I will take a look. I would think, since it has my name on it, someone would have so again. But I'll let you know.
We want to welcome everyone and invite everyone to find a seat. And if you have some extra room, maybe just slide over a bit, be a friendly, helpful person. We're going to begin the Yizkor service. Traditionally, many of us grew up in communities where only those who were considered an orphan, having lost a father or mother, were welcome at the Yizkor service. But there's so much beauty that is part of remembering others. And I do think that our American lifestyle tends to make us feel very fearful of death. And that any time that we could be invited in to understand better, to remember, that we sometimes push away for fear of overwhelming, confusing, or disappointing, or maybe being able to handle the feelings ourselves, answering the questions our young ones might have that we simply don't have the answer to. So all are welcome at our Yizkor service. I want to begin with a poem of Rachel. Rachel was so well known in Israel that she didn't even go by her last name. She was Rachel. You can visit her tomb on the Kinneret, as she was one of the pioneers of Israel. She had no children, but her poetry continues to inspire generations and generations. You can see her portrait on one of the shekel bills in Israel. It is called My Dead. They alone are left me. They alone still faithful. For now death can do no more to them. At the bend of the road, at the close of the day, they gather around me silently and walk by my side. This is a bond nothing can ever loosen. What I have lost, what I possess forever. Rachel reminds us that the spirits of those we have loved and lost are with us always if we let them in. So let's use this time to let them in. And I'm going to begin this by lighting the candle. Actually going to ask Joel to light the candle so I can hold the microphone. It's very interesting that there's no specific ritual that is attached to a Yizkor candle. I just find it such an interesting thing. There's a ritual for pretty much everything else in Judaism. So I want you in this moment to offer whatever blessing, whatever words, whatever silence you need to, so that this flame can represent those who are not physically here on earth with us, but those who are still with us all of the time in our hearts, on our minds, and supporting and sustaining us. If you'd like to follow with us, I'll be using the Yizkor supplement picture of the sunset. Today we remember the faces of those we loved and lost, photographs and albums of our lives, some faded with age, others vivid, defying decay, all precious keepsakes. We remember the times we shared with them, moments big and small, that burned so bright they stayed with us through the years like the light of distant stars that keep shining long after they are gone. We remember their warmth, their wisdom, their kindness, all that was good in them. These qualities seem greater today, while their flaws that annoyed us so much when they were alive seem more trivial, easier to forgive. Perhaps love has a greater shelf life than anger. Or perhaps some things we can only see clearly and appreciate truly from a distance. We remember words heard and said, words we will treasure forever, and words we wish we could take back. If these people were here with us now, what would we say to them? What would we wish for them to say to us? It seems that out of millions of words in the human language, life boils down to 3. I love you. We remember their touch, their smile, how they made us feel when they were at their best. They have left behind a handprint on our hearts and forever changed our lives by being a part of them. In a way, we are them, their legacy, the evidence they mattered. Like the light of distant stars that keep shining long after they're gone, these moments are with us that burn so bright. There are stars in the sky by Chana Senesh, Yesh Kochavim.
There are stars up above, so far away we we only see their light long, long after the star itself is gone. And so it is with people that we love. Their memories keep shining ever brightly, though their time with us is done. But the stars that light up the darkest night, these are the lights that guide us as we live our days. These are the ways we remember. We remember as we live our days. These are the ways we remember.
As we live our days, these are the ways we remember. We are all here remembering someone or many someones, friends, relatives, friends who were like relatives, people of meaning to us for whatever reason that they meant something to us. If you'd like to read along with me, on page 8 we'll find Kitchen Memories. It's shown in science that aromas can be some of the strongest triggers for our memory. So I wish for you, as you remember those you love, all of those aromas to come to you. The recipes, the perfumes, the detergent, whatever it was that makes you think of this person you love so much. My grandmother's challah fresh out of the oven, my mother's strudel, the sweet smell of apples and cinnamon, my aunt's Hungarian goulash, redolent with paprika, a neighborhood bakery, an open kitchen window, the local ethnic restaurant. Walking to a meeting, mind focused on my work, an aroma hits me, transporting me back. I remember those comforting times ensconced in a kitchen nook enveloped in the aromas of my family. Those cooks of my childhood are gone now, but are forever in my heart, coming back to me, returning to me in the aromas of the kitchen. There are many psalms that we recite in a funeral service or memorial service, but none quite has the resonance of the 23rd Psalm. Adonai is my shepherd, I shall not want. I think in part it's because it describes walking through a deep valley that is dark. And that is one of the ways we feel when we are in mourning, that there is this depth to the darkness, and it becomes very, very difficult to see the light. Perhaps this is why the Yizkor candle lightens our day and night and lasts for 24 hours. The Yizkor candle reminds us that whether there is the sun in the sky or not, that the light continues to shine. Let's read responsively on page 10, Rabbi John's poem, Adonai Roi. Adonai Roi, God is my shepherd, lo achsar, I shall not want. But right now we do want. We want the laughter, the smiles, and spirits of those who have gone before us, because our hearts are broken, because our lives will never be the same. The cycle of life and death makes no sense. Where is our shepherd? Where is God? Adonai Roi, God is my shepherd. Lo achsar, I shall not want. But a shepherd cannot control life and death. A shepherd can only care for his flock as best he can. He can love them, attempt to protect them, but ultimately each life is lived by its own design. Adonai Roi, God is my shepherd. Lo achsar, I shall not want. Our shepherd has not left us. God is found in the hand that you are holding. God is found in the shoulder upon which you are crying. God is found in the comfort we give to one another. God is found in memories.
God is present not to shield us from pain, but to
help us pass through it. God is my Roi. God is my shepherd. Adonai Roi. God is my shepherd. Lo achsar, I shall not want. A psalm of David, Adonai is my shepherd, I lack nothing. God makes me lie down in green pastures. God leads me to water in places of repose. God renews my life. God guides me in right paths as befits God's name. Though I walk through a valley of deepest darkness, I fear no harm, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You spread a table for me, a table with challah and goulash and all of those delicious things. And that table is set in full view of my enemies. You anoint my head with oil. My drink is abundant. Only goodness and steadfast love shall pursue me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of Adonai for many long years.
Adonai Roi, lo exar, binote sheyarbitzeni, al mei menuchot, nafshi yeshovev, yancheni b'magele tzedek, yancheni b'magele tzedek, למען Aroch lefanai, lefanai, shulchan neged sorerai, dishanta vashemen roshi kosi revaya. Ach tov v'chesed yirdefuni kol yemei chaya, kol yemei chaya, v'shavti beveit Adonai leorech yamim. Adonai roi lo eksa, Adonai roi lo
Page 12 by Tina DeGan, The Visit. I push the wheelchair into the sunlight. My father reaches up to kiss my cheek. We sit in silent camaraderie, the sun's warmth filtering through the trees, spring painting new leaves on branches, the scent of roses in the air. My father's labored breathing interrupts the birdsong melody. His eyes close as he turns inward. Our paths begin to diverge. Soon I will be alone in the garden, the breeze carrying the memory of his kiss. Chana Senish wrote a remarkable poem. She, too, helped build the state of Israel and served as a paratrooper in the British Brigade against the Nazis and paratrooped into Europe. Hebrew has a way of creating onomatopoeia, or words that sound like the words that they are named for. And in this poem, which has been turned into a song, you will hear the word rish rush, rish rush. And that is the noise that the ocean makes or water makes as it's rushing. And I love this word. It's a really special word. And I've been driving my oldest son each week to Santa Monica to run on Sunday mornings at the beach because he runs cross country. And I noticed a really interesting rish rush that is part of Los Angeles, which is that there's this moment in the sand where you hear the rish rush of the mayim, the rish rush of the water, but as you get closer and closer to reality and further from the beach, you hear the rish rush of the traffic, the rish rush of the everyday, the rish rush of the automobiles. And so I was trying to harness, how do we find that balance between this spectacular noise of the ocean waves and the sound of the cars on the Pacific Coast Highway? And I think it's in moments like this. I think it's in moments like this where we hear that rish rush. Eli, Eli is on page 13. remember not only Chana Senesh, but all of the martyrs who are our brothers and sisters in Israel, who gave their lives in sanctification of the divine name for the sake of the Jewish people, for the sake of our Jewish homeland, Israel. And may they be at one with God, who is life eternal. And may the beauty of their lives always shine through each and every one of us, the miracles. I'm going to invite everyone to take a few minutes for silent meditation. You can choose to flip through the pages of the Yizkor book. You can also choose many of the different pieces that are in the Machzor, the High Holy Day prayer book. There's so much to read and reflect on. And you can choose to just sit and close your eyes and invite your loved one back here to be with you once again, to return again to you.
Didn't I tell you I loved you? Didn't I show you I cared? Didn't you know that you mattered? Wasn't it life that we shared? But time kept ticking, our lives kept slipping. Now that this journey is over, somehow it doesn't seem fair. Now there is no one to talk with. Okay. You guys know the words. As if you're behind me, still there. And time keeps ticking, our lives keep slipping. Now that this journey is over, somehow it doesn't seem fair. I can't hold the wind, I can't slow the tide, I can't stop the rivers from flowing. I can't hold the tears. I can't slow the ride. I hope that I told you I loved you. I hope that I showed you I cared. I hope that you know that you mattered. Wasn't it a great life we shared? What a great journey we shared.
Let's all give a silent clapping here. And much appreciation for Rachel for bringing so much of her authentic self to us. And we are all on this journey with you. We are all in here for a reason. The El Malei Rachamim assures us that God will envelop our loved ones in an embrace, a warm embrace. And we sometimes describe that the talit, the tallis that we wear, is that embrace, is that love and envelopment. Please rise for El Malei Rachamim on page 23.
Malei Rachamim, Shochen Bamromi, Hametzei Menucha Nechona, Tachat Kanfei HaShekhinah. Im kedoshim uteorim kezohar harakia mazhirim lenishmot yakirenu she'alchu leolamim Ba'al harachamim yastirem beseter knafav leolamim veyitzror bitzror hachaim et nishmatam Adonai hu נחלתם וינוחו בשלום על משכבם ונאמר אמן.
If you are able, please remain standing for the recitation of the Mourner's Kaddish. Some words from John Chutko of blessed memory. There are no final outcomes here, no sealed contracts, no conclusions of stone. There are only ideas of light that flow in through reality. There is no perpetual grace to reign in the garden, no chains to bound one. Freedom is letting your soul stand and walk with your mind and heart together. Freedom is the forever truth. Kindness is the knowledge of peace. Mourner's Kaddish is on page 44. If we are able, we all rise in solidarity for those who have no one, 41, for those who have no one to say Kaddish for them. We all stand witness to their life and their meaning. Yitzgadal v'yitzgadash shemei rabbah, ve'alma divra chirutei ve'amlich malchutei, v'chayechon uv'yomechon, uv'chaye decho beit Yisrael, ba'agala uv'izman kariv v'imru amen. Yehe shmei rabbah mevarach le'olam ula'almei almaya, yitzbarach v'yishtabach v'yitzpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh, V'itadar, v'itale, v'ithalal, shmei dekudisha, brichu. Le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechemata, da'amiran be'alma v'imru amen. Yehe shlama rabba min shemaya, v'chayim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael, v'imru amen. Oseh shalom bimromav, Hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'al kol yoshvei tevel ve'imru. Amen. May God, who makes peace in the heavens, bring peace down to all of us. Bring peace and comfort. Bring memory, love, and joy to us once again. And let us say together, Amen. You may be seated. The Neilah service will commence at 6 o'clock.
Yeah.
Sorry. If I talk about how much I hate a service, it's like...
Yeah, and then I took a final shot.
Counterproductive.
So I didn't get it.
So... Can you please hand me that robe? Thank you. I've lost it. I'll just take it here. Yeah, just take it here. Yeah. It sure was fun. Oh, that was so frustrating. Were you in here for meditation? Okay. No, it was upstairs. Well, it's just because I really wanted to be here for his year. That's like. I don't know. It's like the whole reason I stayed until this service. I'm like, I'm so sorry that I'm in such a mood right now. I didn't mean it at all. I know we were kind of caught off guard. We're going in. You know what I mean? Yeah. Well, hopefully that means the last part's gonna fly. Yep, everything's going quick. Wow, you're so nice. You are so Yeah, seriously, both of us are like, no.
That's,
Yeah, no.
that's it. Are you sure we want that right there?
I'm just joking, gosh.
Really high and really back there.
Oh my goodness gracious. Thank goodness, because you were just killing me this year. I was so done. Gosh. Oh my gosh, I know. Silly. Oh yeah, y'all know what number that is? 38.
לישועה.
Let's return to our silver machzor, our prayer book, on page 612. We are now opening the service of Neilah, the service of the gates that we see as the light becomes more scarce. The gates are closing. The sun is setting. The Shabbat of Shabbatot is coming to an end. There is a challah hiding under there. We are close. We are very, very close. And so we also want to hold in this moment and pray for the gates of forgiveness, the gates of God's love, the gates of redemption to be open for as long as possible. The long day is over and the gates are closing. Slowly day fades into dusk. Soon the earth will darken. Our bodies weak and weary, our inner strength undiminished. This day has been a gift. Uncluttered time, free from hurry and routine, appointments or assignments, a time to face our sins and imperfections, our dreams and yearnings for the life we want to live, a time to leave the clamor of the world and attend to the voice within. Long ago, the temple gates were locked at dusk. So too, at this hour, the gates of Yom Kippur begin to close. Have we done all that needed to be done? Said everything that needed to be said? Join with me in this final paragraph. The gates of God's compassion never close, but soon enough, our lives close in on us. Now, in the silence of our soul, now, before the holy day comes to an end, released the... We continue with our Amidah, our standing prayer. The Neilah prayer, again, the Neilah service, excuse me, I am tired. The Neilah service is one that requires a lot of standing, but again, to honor the Torahs in here very much matters, the Torahs of the Ark, but to honor the Torah of our bodies matters more. If you need to sit down, please sit down. Honor your fast by resting. We will offer the Amidah, which is on page 622. And again, please stand only if you are able.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu Elohei avotenu ve'imotenu.
Page 624.
Elohei Abraham Elohei Yitzchak ve'Elohei Yaakov Elohei Sarah Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, Ve'Elohei Leah, Ha'el HaGadol, HaGibor ve'Hanora, El Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim, Ve'Koneh HaKol, Ve'Zocher Chastei Avot ve'Imahot, U'mevii Geula livnei bneihem, Leman Shemo ve'Ahava.
Remember us for life, sovereign God who treasures life. Seal us in the book of life for your sake, God of life, sovereign of salvation, pillar of protection. Blessed are you in our lives, Adonai, shield of Abraham, sustainer of Sarah. Baruch atah Adonai, Magin Avraham ve'ezrat Sarah. We'll continue silently with our Amidah through page 639. Page 646. Please continue if you wish with your Amidah. This is all part of one big prayer. Moses prayed to God, "As you have been faithful to this people ever since Egypt, please forgive their failings now, in keeping with your boundless love. Adonai, Adonai, God, compassionate, gracious, endlessly patient, loving and true, showing mercy to the 1,000th generation, forgiving evil, defiance, and wrongdoing, granting pardon." And God responded, "I forgive as you have asked. Adonai, Adonai, el rachum v'chanun, erech apayim, v'rav chesed v'emet, notzer chesed la'alafim, nose avon v'fesha v'chata'a v'nakeh, v'yomer Adonai, salachti ki devarecha." Page 648, we continue. "Forgive us, Avinu, for we have strayed. Pardon us, Malkeinu, for succumbing to sin. You are generous in granting forgiveness, all loving to those who reach out to you. Adonai, Adonai, God, compassionate, gracious, endlessly patient, loving, and true. You can join with me. Showing mercy to the 1,000th generation, forgiving evil, defiance, and wrongdoing, granting pardon. Our God and God of our fathers and mothers, forgive us, pardon us, lead us to atonement. On page 653, we will offer our final confessionals. Let's read together in the middle of the page with all our heart, with all our mind, and with all of our being, at least what we have left to offer today. Of these wrongs we are guilty. We betray, we steal, we scorn, we act perversely. We are cruel, we scheme, we are violent, we slander, we devise evil, we lie. We ridicule, we disobey, we abuse, we defy, we corrupt, we commit crimes. We are hostile, we are stubborn, we are immoral, we kill, we spoil, we go astray, we lead others astray. What can we say to you whose existence is beyond space and time? What words of ours can reach your realm, beyond the clouds, beyond heaven itself? Every hidden mystery, every revelation, surely you know them all.
דיברנו דופי, הבינו, והרשנו, זדנו, חמסנו, תופענו שקר, לילה לילה יעצנו רע, כיזבנו, מרדנו, ניאצנו, שררנו, אבינו, פשענו, צררנו, קישינו עורף,
page 659, we start to feel that we are going to be returning to ourselves, that the language that we have been using can be transformed from the language of guilt and confession into the language of goodness and positive action. I'd like us to read together reading number 2, an acrostic, an alphabetical order of all of the things that we truly got right this year. Because we also did a lot of things right, and we did a lot of things really well, and we actually are good and kind and humble people. So let's read together, and let's open our fist and gently thank ourselves on our heart for all of the mitzvahs, all of the love, all of the kindness we have shared with ourselves and others. Reading number 2, Hakarat Hatov, recognizing the good. We have aspired to reach higher. We have befriended those in need. We have created works of beauty. We have delighted in holy books. We have embraced our dear ones and held them close. We have fought for justice. We have given of ourselves. We have honored your mitzvot. We have immersed ourselves in prayer. We have joined hands to build community. We have kept our word with integrity. We have loved faithfully and well. We have moved toward the light. We have nourished and supported. We have opened ourselves to hope. We have pursued the good. We have quieted our anger. We have remembered those who came before. We have sought meaning in Torah. We have trusted and been trustworthy. We have uttered words of beauty. We have vigorously struggled to do right. We have wept over our shortcomings. We have exchanged blame for compassion. We have yearned to make life better. We have zestfully rejoiced. In a moment, we will open the ark and we will place 1 or 2 of the Torahs amongst the community. Actually, we'll have one mobile Torah, and we will have Torahs here on these 2 side Torah posts and 1 or 2 in the ark. We invite you through these next series of prayers and songs to have a private moment with the Torah from a slight distance, being mindful of the other people around you, making sure that your moment or minute is but a minute. And we invite you back to Kol Tikva at any time to have your own private moments with the Torahs. We would be delighted to do that. So please be aware of just the bountiful nature of the number of people in this room that may want their own moment with the Torah. The ark is opened as we continue with some music from the choir, Ilu Finu.
Oh
as your entrance? Or using both entrances? Thank you.
המון גדול.
We'll continue with Avinu Malkeinu on page 662 in the prayer book. On page 662, let's read responsively the English. Avinu Malkeinu, Almighty and merciful, welcome our prayer with love. Accept and embrace it. Avinu Malkeinu, act for the sake of your boundless compassion. Avinu Malkeinu, act toward us as befits your name. Avinu Malkeinu, seal us, Hotmeinu, seal us, in the book of sustenance and livelihood. Avinu Malkeinu, seal us in the book of worthiness and merit. Avinu Malkeinu, seal us in the book of forgiveness and pardon. Avinu Malkeinu, seal us in the book of lives well lived, page 664. Avinu Malkeinu, seal us in the book of redemption and renewal. Avinu Malkeinu, let our hands overflow with your blessings. Avinu Malkeinu, let the gates of heaven be open to our prayer. Avinu Malkeinu, renew us for a year of goodness. Avinu Malkeinu, we have no sovereign but you. Avinu Malkeinu, almighty and merciful, answer us with grace when our deeds are wanting. Save us through acts of justice and love. Page 670. As the day ends, we stand as one before the gates of a new year, renewed by this day of atonement, made stronger by all who are with us and by those whose presence we feel within. As the day fades into dusk, we join our voices in words of hope and dedication. Read this together with me. Open for us the gates of righteousness, that we may enter and praise the eternal source of life. Open for us the gates of sacred community, that we may enter and feel its healing power. Open for us the gates of truth and integrity, that we may enter and grow in faithfulness. Open for us the gates of devotion and principle, that we may enter and find enduring values and meaning. Open for us gates of repentance and return, that we may enter and offer our best. Open for us the gates of forgiveness, that we may enter and offer our humanity. Open for us the gates of kindness and compassion, that we may enter and offer our love. We will now end this Shabbat of Shabbatot with the traditional Havdalah ceremony. There are lights being passed around. We're going to dim the lights. Please indulge yourself in some extra light. We're going to close the ark. We will get to Shema Yisrael after we close After we close Shabbat, we will blast the shofar loudly and we will all resound in the sound of the Shema. I want to invite everyone to gently come closer to the bima. We invite you to be close. If you can, please bring your prayer book for those final few prayers. You may also come on the bima, so come to the forefront of the bima and on the bima, please.
Even
I am cueing the shofar squadron, or whoever from the shofarot brigade, the shofar brigade, to join us. Ensemble is probably the better word, but brigade is kind of neat too. As the Sabbath of Sabbath ends, we say from the heart, living source, you are ours, we are yours. From beyond time and space, you hold out your hand to receive us. Living source, you are ours, we are yours. You are the sovereign of remembrance, the voice of holiness. Your presence lights the way. Living source, you are ours, we are yours. Shema Yisrael, hear the shofar, witness to history, thunder to our souls. Living source, you are ours, we are yours. Happy are those who love the sound of the shofar, its mystic chords of memory. Living source, you are ours, we are yours. Hear the shofar, hear its cry of freedom, its call of courage, cherish its promise of hope. On page 600, I can say it, page 672, we find our conclusion to all of these services, and I want to really thank everyone and extend gratitude, especially for my Bima partner, Dr. Joel Stein, and his choir, just most tremendous and meaningful. We are going to participate in the ritual of the Shema many times, and then Baruch Shem Kavod many times, and Adonai Hu HaElohim, God is our God, many times. The Shema we will actually just do once. And then we will conclude this incredible Shabbat of Shabbatot with the blast of the shofar. And then with motzi, so we can all eat.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto Leolam Vaed. Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto Leolam Vaed. Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto Leolam Vaed. Adonai Hu HaElohim, 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 Adonai Hu
Tekiah, Shavarim, Teruah, Tekiah Gedolah. next year in Jerusalem, L'Shana Haba'ah B'Yerushalayim. Before we make the blessing over the bread, I want to remind you of that challenge that we have to bring over 1,500 pounds of food, non-perishable food, by Sunday, 11 a.m. to donate to our neighbors, the West Valley Food Bank. And I also want to remind you of that challenge where I invited you to place a blank check in your pocket, and before you ended your fast, to determine how much is that meal worth to you. That's what you need to give to another. Before we join the community celebration to end the fast, I want to remind you that some of us here were fasting and some of us were not. So if you were able to sustain yourself without the fast, if you could be so kind as to allow the people who fasted the first chance to get to the table and to rejuvenate their spirit, I know everyone would really appreciate it. Let's join together in Motzi and Osei Shalom.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hamotzi lechem min haaretz b'tei avon. Oseh shalom bimromav hu yaseh shalom aleinu. Oseh shalom bimromav hu yaseh shalom aleinu. Oseh shalom bimromav hu yaseh shalom aleinu. Yaseh shalom, yaseh shalom, shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Yaseh shalom, yaseh shalom, shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Oseh shalom bimromav hu yaseh shalom aleinu. Oseh shalom bimromav hu yaseh shalom aleinu. Oseh shalom bimromav hu yaseh shalom aleinu. Yaseh shalom, yaseh shalom, shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Yaseh shalom, yaseh shalom, shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Shana tova.
Picture.